Staten Island Community Television. You're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello and very happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm Jamie Hickson. And look who made it back. Mr. Actor, Mr. Superstar Actor himself. Go on and introduce yourself, Superstar.
Thank you so much, my man. I'm happy to be back. My name's Eric Rosen, and the reason he brings up actor is I just came off doing a 7-performance stint at the Little Victory Theater with my acting company, the Staten Island Academy of Performing Arts, doing the show Wait Until Dark. Amazing show that was directed by written by Frederick Knott, directed wonderfully by Elise D. Simone and Bruce Biggins, along with Alberta Thompson, who is the proprietor of the Little Victory Theater and produced the show. A great cast of people. It was an amazing show. We sold out 5 out of 7 of our performances for the show. In fact, we had to even add some extra seats in the back of the theater. It's a really great theater. If you want to see some amazing community theater, get yourselves down to the Little Victory Theater. It's on 4089 Victory Boulevard, right by Wild Avenue, next to Better. Community theater is great. And I know there's some actors here as well.
Yeah, we've got a peanut gallery full of actors on the scene right now. In fact, 2 very familiar faces, Darren Lav and Dave Paul, are joining us. And hello once again, gentlemen. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having us back.
Yeah. And you also brought your assistants with us. Can you please introduce the 2 assistants that you have going on?
Yeah. So, hello. My name is Tamil James. And
I thought you were Odell Beckham Jr.
And I am the professional photographer for Dave Paul. And my friend over here.
My name is Patrick Munson. I'm the personal assistant for Dave Paul. I'm also going to be managing a website that we might talk about a little bit.
Awesome.
Yep.
Lots of stuff coming up.
How was it doing this play?
It was great. Amazing cast. That's what helps. If you have a good cast to work with, then everything else falls into place, and that's what I had. Talking about guys like Michelle Maggieri, who played Susie Hendricks, Michael Mazzoni, who played Sam Hendricks. Then I had, of course, Dane Forgione as Henry Rowett, the sociopath in the show, and then Joseph Trifulli, who played Sergeant Joe Carlino, and Mary Kay Mahaney, actress, future star in the making, awesome lady who played Gory in the show, and we had Bruce, who even came at the end as the cop. I played Mike Tallman, one of the main characters. It was based on the movie back in the 1960s that Audrey Hepburn actually starred in. I played Richard Crenna's character in the show, and
very nice.
It was an amazing time. It really I really respect what actors do, how they prepare themselves. It's such a process to conceive a show and make it into reality, and then everything else that falls in between. And you've probably, had those moments where there were times where they're difficult and where it was like you almost didn't want to be there at times, or that there were moments where it was tough and adversity. Mm-hmm. But, you get over those moments because you realize at the end, you love what you do, you persevere, you push through, and you know what? At the end of the day, I never wanted to leave. I may say things like that, but you never want to leave. I just loved it. It was a great time. I know I'm taking up too much time. I know you guys have probably a lot to say.
Long story short, did you have a good time?
Oh, of course. Had the best time in the world.
By the way, I went to see your show this past Thursday night. Excellent job, first of all.
Thank you.
And second of all, the actor Dane, he really took his character very seriously, so seriously that it looked like he was still in character even after the fact.
Yes, he brought his weapon. His character has a knife that is named Geraldine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's definitely one of the main. He stabbed me 7 times precisely.
Did it hurt?
Yeah, he did. He a little twist and all that, and then a little boom. I went
The fun stuff.
Yeah, there was one time I actually almost hurt myself on set. Doing, because we don't have stunt doubles.
Oh, you were the stunt double. Huh?
You did it all yourself.
I did all my own stunts and all that.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
And now you're back live and in living color and ready to talk a lot of sports, correct?
Sports and some acting as well. We can get both that in because like I said, we got some actors here and all that. I like to know about them as well.
Yeah, I call them the peanut gallery because we have a real, for lack of a better word, cast of characters that have made their way into the studio right now.
I'll wait until you see this.
Before we continue, I just want to give a quick word of thanks to my dear friend Hector Boza, who was kind enough to fill in for Eric in the 3 or 4 weeks that you were gone with the play. Hector really brought a lot of fun to the show, and he also brought some old school hijinks to the show as well. When I say that, I mean playing some of the music that was going on, also doing a little soccer, doing a little high school stuff as well. The chair is still available for you, Hector, if you want to make your way back one of these days. So you just say the word, and we're going to make it happen. But now, we got a lot of business to discuss, and we're going to be discussing it right here and with the fans that are watching at 718-727-0143. And, of course, you can also check us out through Facebook and Twitter and YouTube because we have previous episodes streaming on each medium right there. And you can also contact me through Instagram if you can. First things first, we had a lot of stuff going on in the NFL this past weekend, from missed extra points to more star players getting hurt.
So what is that about?
Well,
Extra points.
12. It's
12 missed
12
extra
in one
points.
weekend.
That was unheard of. I've
Well,
never seen that.
at MetLife Stadium,
I
it's
think-
understandable because the wind always plays tricks on the ball. But elsewhere, I don't know if it was mechanics. I don't know if it was weather conditions in the other stadiums. But does this make people second guess the idea of moving the ball back to the 35-yard line?
makes the games more compelling, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it does, because that 1 point could be the difference between winning and losing. I remember the first game of the year as a Jet fan. We remember the Cincinnati game. That was 4 points left on the board right there.
Yep, because
That-
Nick Folk missed the extra point and then had
field
the field
goal.
goal blocked.
Exactly. So things like that, it makes the game more compelling and it makes it more challenging as opposed to the easy 21-yarder where every time a fan would see, oh, here he goes for the extra point.
It makes you think that more teams should be like the Pittsburgh Steelers and go for 2 more often.
And that's what it does create is those a lot of 2-point conversion plays. And we're also going to see a lot of defensive stops. Like I remember last week, the New Orleans-Seattle game. New Orleans had a chance to get the extra point to try to get the game lead. What happens? Seattle blocks the ball, wins the game 25-23. So we're going to see plenty of things like that, or the 2-point conversions that Pittsburgh does. Speaking of which, Pittsburgh, Thursday night, coming up, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, in a game against the Colts, who may not have Andrew Luck because he's going through concussion protocol as we speak right now. He got hurt really badly in yesterday's game against the Titans.
I'm hearing reports that right now it's very tough that it's going to be tough for him to even play this Thursday. So most likely we're going to see his backup play for him.
Yep.
That-
And as it
Do
turns
they
out,
actually have a backup?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. That backup's in a world of hurt because he has, first of all, in his only game that he's going to probably be playing, he's going up against the tough Steelers defense.
Yeah.
Lawrence
And
Timmons,
They're
yeah.
not going to give him any breathing room.
Yeah.
He's going to have to throw it very quickly.
and the Steelers have already not necessarily played well, but they're starting to round back into form because, for one, Ben Roethlisberger is back, and 2,
The defense actually got better yesterday.
yeah, the defense has gotten much better.
Well, I mean, don't forget, though, they play against the Cleveland Browns
Yeah.
offense that anybody doesn't even have to play that well against them. They have no offense.
And
And
to
did you see
answer
how many
your-
sacks they got in that game? 8 sacks in that game alone. They came into that game with a legal, legal of 13 sacks on the season.
I was
By the
gonna
way,
say-
our friend and Jeanette, also known as Sky, is peeking in saying hello. She just got done with Sky TV. Quick shout out to our dear friend Sky. Always doing a great job with Sky TV.
Yeah.
She's taking a bow for us right now.
And let me
Thank
just
you,
say-
Ange.
Let me just say it's a pleasure, and that I am her co-host on Sky TV.
Mm-hmm.
One of the co-hosts on Sky TV. It is awesome working for her. It's a great story that we always have together. and the guests are getting better and better each week.
It's interesting because it's through Sky TV that you and I wound up meeting just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, yes, the Colts do have a backup, but it's nobody that you have ever heard of before.
Oh, boy.
Does the name Scott Tolzien ring a bell?
Yeah,
Actually, it does. Wasn't he in Green Bay?
Yes. He's 29 years old, and he started a grand total of 2 games in his NFL career, but he has not played a game in 3 years.
And
And
now
you-
he's playing against the Steelers defense
On Thursday-
Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving night.
Mm-hmm.
Happy
That's
Thanksgiving, Mr. Tolzien,
I
huh?
think they're
He's
going
gonna
to
get
give him a
stuffed.
little wishbone.
The Steelers are licking their chops at this moment.
And they got a questionable offensive line. And that's the problem with Indianapolis and so many teams. They have a lot of questionable O-lines that they've had to reshuffle. In fact, they invested heavily in the draft, the Colts, for the offensive line. That still, honestly, hasn't come to fruition.
Yeah. Well, with the Colts, I mean, yes, Andrew Luck is the reason why they're going. But when they got Frank Gore, they thought they had the missing part.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, Frank Gore is acting like his own age.
Yeah.
Much slower,
Mm-hmm.
not as explosive.
Mhm.
And even though, like you said, the offensive line's giving them more problems.
Mm-hmm.
And if Andrew Luck is hurt, they have to rely heavily on Gore. Now Gore's not the same anymore.
Exactly.
So now they're
Is it a matter of personnel on that line, or is it a matter of mechanics? Because there's a lot to being an offensive lineman than just trying to block your man. There's also footwork involved. There's also trying to pick up the schemes from the defense. Is it as easy as personnel, or is it more along the lines of mechanical stuff that they have to work on?
I mean, from my point of view, from what I've seen the Colts do so far this year, I think it's a mixture of both.
I was just about to say the same
Yeah,
thing.
yep.
You could see that every once in a while they look lost, especially when you see a blitz package coming at them.
They get
You
scared.
you could see the offensive lineman when the ball snapped, not knowing which way to turn. And as you said, if you don't have a great offensive line, if you don't have a good offensive line, forget great. Your quarterback's in trouble, your running back's in trouble. And getting back to Frank Gore for a minute, they relied heavily on him the first couple, 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think that took a toll on his body in the beginning of the year. I don't think he hasn't been the same since week 3, week 4?
Yeah.
Well, it's not about just having the one great player or a couple great players.
Come on
If
a
they're
little
not-
closer to the microphone now.
If they're not all working together as a team and they're not being able to pick up on each other, you can't just rely on that one guy. Because like you said, they're just going to get worn down, they're just going to get beat down, and then what are you left with? A bunch of guys who are used to relying on someone they can't. If they're not mechanically working well together, it doesn't matter how good they are.
Well, let me just say, when Frank Gore's out of the question, right? When you can't get him the ball anymore, when the defense is already on top of him, no more breathing room, the only weapon they have left
Turpin.
is Hilton.
Yep.
T.Y. Hilton.
T.Y.
is their
T.Y.
only
Hilton.
In terms of
explosive
yeah.
wide receiver to get the ball out and actually gaining yards.
And even, you know what, I'll say, even Dante Moncrief can give you some plays here and there.
Moncrief is good. They also
Yeah.
have Dwayne Allen, right, a tight end,
Yeah.
who
Came
really
out of
came into his
Stanford.
own last year.
He put up 8 touchdowns last year by
Yep.
himself.
He did so well that the Colts let Colby Fleener go in
Yep.
the offseason.
But that's because Andrew Luck was throwing it to him. Now they got this rookie quarterback that's coming in on a Thursday night against a hungry Steelers defense that wants to keep winning now.
Yeah.
And they're hitting their stride now.
And you not only have to deal with Lawrence Timmons, who had a nasty hit yesterday on Cody Kessler that forced him out of the Cleveland game. You also got to deal with the guy that came in from Notre Dame a few years ago that's on their defense, James Harrison, who's still, I can't even
He's
believe.
a beast. He's still
He's
going on
still-
all cylinders. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable
Yeah.
how good a shape that guy is.
Like, he's better than most people, half the people at his age, and he still has a motor. And when he rips your head off, he's going to rip your head off, eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and not think twice.
And take your helmet with you.
Yeah.
Well, that hit
Hanging
that
on the
Timmons
wall.
had on Kessler yesterday, he actually gave him his second concussion in 5 weeks, I heard earlier.
Yeah,
today.
and because of that, the Browns are going to have to start Josh McCown against the Giants next Sunday. And let me tell you, that should be a Giants victory. But the way they stunk it up the first half against the Bears yesterday, that's not necessarily a guarantee because Cleveland can keep games close for a little bit.
That predicates on Cleveland actually finishing games. There's in the first 5 weeks of the year, they had at least 3-4 victories that they could have had in that win column, and they screwed up every single time in the second half.
The second half, it's almost like Cleveland doesn't have any adjustments whatsoever, and the other team knows exactly what they're going to do in the second half.
They read
It
the
looks
book.
like they have no more gas. That's what it looks like. Either gas or confusion. And they have no veteran players on that team.
I think-
and if they are, they're not.
Terrell Pryor's the majority of their offense, as well as Isaiah Crowell.
And that is really scary considering that Terrell Pryor is a former quarterback turned receiver. If you have a former quarterback leading your team, a guy who's had not necessarily the best past, going back to his Ohio State days, you got problems.
And I just heard this story that just came out. Joe Thomas actually ripped the front office, for the way things are going right now.
Yeah.
This is a
Good for
veteran.
him.
Yeah, finally, right?
Good for him. Somebody has to stand up there. I'm surprised Joe Hayden didn't do it also.
I know.
Well, the good thing is, at least people are showing a little anger now of what's going on. Because I would say when they're 0-8 even, I was surprised didn't see any emotion going on. Now 0-11,
Yep.
at least somebody has to start sticking up for the team.
Where will they get their first win, though? I would say the game against San Diego. I think they actually could win that game, and it's at home. That's
Are they going to get a win?
I think they will get one victory before this year is out. They will not join the 2008 Detroit Lions.
Well, look at who's on their schedule. After the Giant game on Sunday, they've got Cincinnati, Buffalo, San Diego, and Pittsburgh to finish the year.
So,
Brutal.
from my point of view, the way they're playing, and they can't close out games, and that to me sounds like a pretty tough schedule against a team with the Browns that have no offense whatsoever. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, listen to my words right now. They will finish the season with 0 wins. That's my point of view.
You think?
Would not surprise me.
All right.
0 wins.
Would not surprise me one bit.
Oh, he's putting up the one finger. What is that win?
San Diego.
You think it's going to be San Diego?
Yep.
Well, we'll see.
Well, how
they,
about-
they play each other Christmas Eve.
Philip Rivers.
Ooh, that could be a
will
good
not
game.
let that
Mm-hmm.
I think
I don't know if
that game, right? That San Diego is almost in that same boat. Remember the beginning of the year, the fourth quarter, the game against Indianapolis, the game against New Orleans. Every time they had a fourth quarter lead, they blow it in the last 5 minutes, where they could have won those games and could have been in the race for the AFC West. Right now, this is a team that is just barely breathing right now.
But didn't you say they're playing them on Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas Eve they're playing each other.
So there's no way
No miracle.
Philip Rivers will not let a Cleveland Browns defense stop a cannon like what he has.
You don't think he'll give him a Christmas present?
No, he won't give him a Christmas present. He's gonna be rich, for God's sakes.
Well, I think some of these guys want to have their good health back by the time Christmas rolls around, because we had a whole bunch of guys leaving games yesterday because of injuries. And it wasn't just Cody Kessler of the Browns either. Even in the Giant game yesterday, the quarterback for the Bears, Jay Cutler, wound up being forced out of the game because of a shoulder. There's a chance he's going to miss the season.
That's not good.
There were other guys who wound up missing time. Luke Kuechly, who looked like he was on the verge of tears the other night against the Saints, he wound up leaving the game because of a concussion. There was
A.J. Green.
A.J. Green also. From what I heard, he tore his hamstring.
Yep. And Gianari Bernard tore his ACL, correct?
Mm-hmm.
done
Tore his
for the-
ACL.
done
He's
for the
gone
year.
for the year.
See, the thing is this year in the NFL, there's been so many more injuries that we've ever heard of before in a long time.
It's the new rules too, as well. A lot of the hits are below the knee now, so you're seeing a rise in ACL injuries because you're not allowed to do any more the helmet-to-helmet contact hits.
Yet we're
unless
still
you-
seeing helmet-to-helmet hits that are going uncalled.
I know.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you can't stop inertia. You cannot stop physics from happening. Things are going to happen, unfortunately. But I've seen a small decline, in the amount of hits because the NFL is trying to avoid major billion-dollar lawsuits that could come down the pipeline, in the future. They really are trying because they were caught. Remember the movie Concussion that came out about Dr. Bennett Amalu, the Nigerian doctor who actually discovered CTE before anybody else even knew what the heck that was. And he studied mostly with the Pittsburgh Steelers with the player Mike Webster.
Yeah.
And
The now
then-
late Mike
Excellent
Webster.
movie, though.
Yep.
Yes.
And there were several other players. The player that was from the Chicago Bears.
Dave Duerson.
Yeah, and all these other players that
Another guy who committed suicide because of CTE.
And it's because of Dr. Malo, now the NFL has had to really discuss in the last decade or so about the rise in these head injuries.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, remember there was a lawsuit that just came out, like a class action suit with so many players because of drugs, prescription drugs that were given to them.
Yeah.
Major head injuries that took place. And those, in today's NFL, they're a lot faster. They're stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, you know what I think is funny is that how can the commissioner tell everybody when you're in full speed in the heat of the moment to slow down?
Yep.
And just not do any kind of head-to-head helmet. See, the thing is, they're not looking for the head helmet collision. They're just going there to sack the quarterback. They're
Yeah.
not
They
thinking
just
of
need to make
that.
the connection. That's it.
Funny
Now
you
they
mentioned
can't
that because there
penalize
was a
for it.
controversial
Now it's
call
going
in
down.
yesterday's Viking game where one of the down linemen was called for roughing the passer for quote-unquote driving the quarterback to the ground with his head. First of all, he didn't do a head-to-head hit. He led with the shoulder, and somehow
But it's
he
close
wound up
enough
getting
to the
called for
head.
roughing the passer.
Yeah, some of the calls
He was
are
trying
getting
to
ridiculous.
make. Yeah, some of these calls are getting
I've seen
ridiculous.
lots of
what's-
ref
They're getting
calls.
so
I'm sorry.
picky on it. It's crazy.
It's funny that we talk about this because not only did we bring up the movie Concussion, but some of the players that have passed away from these CTE-related injuries.
Junior Seau.
The late Junior Seau, Dave Duerson, Mike Webster, Andre Waters was another. Andre Waters was considered the dirtiest player in the NFL because he was notorious for leading with his head. And a lot of the hits that he made were uncalled.
Yeah.
There was a really great 20-page article, 25-page article in Sports Illustrated, the recent one that just got released, about the state of football in America. Long story short, one person says he can imagine an America without tackle football one day.
Oh,
Really?
God.
Wow. What,
Do,
two
do
can't
you
touch?
think it will get to the point where we're not going to have tackle football
I
or
hope that's
any
not the
kind of
case.
football anymore?
I would never watch it again. And it's my
I-
favorite sport. I
I
would
could-
never watch it again.
I was going to say, it is my favorite sport as well. I don't see that happening in our lifetime.
What next?
Hopefully not.
It better not, because then what's the point? You might as well just cancel the NFL, dissolve it altogether, even though that's $13 billion going down the drain. And now what were we left with? The NBA, NHL, and Major League
The
Baseball.
NHL also has had problems with concussions because of the heavy hits that have gone on there. Baseball has had guys suffer from concussions because of plays at the plate or getting beamed by pitches.
And I'll be
Or
honest,
what about the line drives?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or line drives being hit right at the pitcher.
Well, don't forget, concussion-wise, you also got to take in consideration boxing.
Yeah.
Consideration boxing is a big
Boxing,
MMA.
mixed martial arts.
Even soccer.
speaking
with
of
the
Soccer,
boxing,
too.
this past weekend, the big fight, Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev.
Mm-hmm.
Controversial fashion. Ward won by unanimous decision, but some people thought that even the media people that were at ringside, ESPN.com, a legendary professional, Lester Holdman, I think his name was, for HBO, all scored it for Kovalev to win, and yet the referees, all 116, 114, went to Ward.
There's been a lot of that I've seen. Yeah, it was also in the Olympics. So there was a similar thing going on where people see one thing, and then the refs are scoring the other way. So a lot of people are kind of wondering: is this really what they think, or are they being made to do this?
I don't. And here's the crazy thing: Ward didn't had 10 less punches landed than Kovalev. Kovalev actually should have won the match. I was really shocked in that regard. And Ward now won the WBO, the WBI, and the IBF light heavyweight championship. And now there is a rematch clause in the contracts for this match, but Ward doesn't want to do it anytime soon.
No.
Typical.
Because he knew he lost the fight.
Yep.
And
It's gotten to the point where the only way to win a match anymore is through a full-fledged knockout
Yep.
instead of the point system.
But also
The only way to
problem-
make sure that it's legit.
Yeah.
Points are never consistent. You can watch game after game, and the points are never consistent.
The worst fight to me still, the $100 I'll never see again. Of course, I'm the Pacquiao Mayweather fight.
Oh boy.
All that was a dance.
Yep.
It was so
12
hyped
rounds
up.
of dancing.
It was so hyped
It was
up.
like,
it
it
was-
was like they
that-
were. They might as well have been like, Yeah. Let's tango. Dun, 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 dun.
That
Yeah,
whole
right.
that fight, building up to the fight, was so huge.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world was rocking about it.
Oh.
And finally, after years and years of talking about it, it's finally here. We're all paying a ridiculous amount of money to watch it, all excited.
The
and
delays.
all of a sudden, like what you said, all of a sudden it's just dancing around. It's not intense. It's not head to head. It's nothing.
It wasn't what anyone expected.
No, it was the worst fight ever I've seen.
In all seriousness, though, what was the last great fight that you saw?
Well, I would say the last fight was a trilogy. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but the trilogy was Arturo Thunder Gotti
And Mickey Ward.
That trilogy was the best trilogy I've ever seen in boxing.
Right. That's what
Yep.
I'm saying. How far back do we have to go to actually see a great fight?
Well, it's going to be for a while.
Speaking of fights, Conor McGregor fought at Madison Square Garden recently, and
won.
Not only did he win, there was constant buzz before, during, and after the fight.
That was an
fight
actual
Mayweather.
fight.
Yeah.
And now there's
Street fight.
yeah.
Connor knows how to really just get out there and have people look.
His
and
style
listen.
is very aggressive. In the first 30 seconds of fight, he's coming at you with either his backhand. He'll either knee you. He's a punch. He's always up. That's the thing. He's not a ground person. He's definitely always, he's
He
a
has the
striker.
strikes. Yep.
He's a
the
striker.
strikes.
Speaking of McGregor, he has officially thrown the gauntlet down towards Floyd Mayweather. He wants a match with Floyd Mayweather.
tell
Is
you-
it going to happen, though?
Let me tell you, everybody, mark my words. Mayweather is scared of McGregor.
Without a
Who
doubt.
wouldn't be?
Yep.
Mayweather, for all the pizzazz he tries to show, for all the arrogance and ignorance at times,
Yep.
he would get his butt kicked so badly by McGregor, he would need his entire posse to get him out of that.
Carry him out.
Yeah.
But the thing is this. There's one way and one way only Mayweather's going to beat McGregor.
Boxing.
And ladies and gentlemen, you know what I'm going to say. It's a flat-out boxing match. If it's a flat-out boxing match, regardless of McGregor's skills, of what he does, I mean, he could fight too. The thing is, if it's a flat-out fight, Mayweather's going to knock him out.
And Mayweather is one victory away from 50. That's the crazy. Even though he defeated, he tied Rocky Marciano's record of 49 victories without a loss. If he actually had another fight, he'd get that elusive 50. But honestly, he doesn't want to do it because he knows at this point in his career he doesn't have it anymore. He has knocked down the point in 5 years at this point.
And he has millions and millions and millions of dollars. He doesn't have to do this anymore.
No,
He really doesn't.
in that fight alone against Pacquiao, he made, I think it was 120 million just alone in that
Yeah.
fight.
Oh, what did Mayweather
Just to
made?
dance with him.
Mayweather made only what, $5 million? Well,
Yep.
Mayweather went all. It's just ridiculous.
Well,
it really is.
Speaking of fights, even though this doesn't really count as much, the Survivor Series took place over the weekend, and the big storyline was this.
Goldberg.
The big storyline was
Yep.
Goldberg making his return to face Brock
yeah.
Lesnar.
I was excited about seeing Goldberg
He's-
again.
It's been a
And
long
It was like
time.
1997 all over again. It was like watching
Yeah.
WCW Monday Nitro, like the 173.
And talking about not aging, like James Harrison, Goldberg hasn't aged either. He still has it.
The problem was, what I heard, he didn't have as much time to train before this fight. He had a shoulder injury, too, before this matchup. That's why it was relatively short. It was like 84 seconds the match lasted.
And as it turns out, the way Goldberg just dominated in that time really took everyone by surprise, because consider this. Goldberg has had, at least 3 or 4 years since his last match?
I think even more than that.
10 years, maybe 10 or 15 years since his last match.
Because I saw him come out. He was gray beard. I was like, wow, did he age?
Well, don't forget, he's an actor, just like The Rock. Except The Rock's a lot, better at what he does.
You think?
Well, I know. He's a lot.
And he's
better.
got that new movie, the anime film actually coming out, Moana from Disney.
Yeah.
That's going to, of course, net him several more $1 million that he already has.
Yep.
At Disney money.
Yep.
Yep. And as it turns out, there was a major injury that took place in the card because Shane McMahon wound up getting his butt kicked by Roman Reigns.
Not only that, because you know that patent move that Shane McMahon does, where he does that corner thing with his knee. He tried to do that in Roman, and Roman countered with his patented spear move.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt his. You could tell his ribs were probably like really damaged at that point.
Yeah.
Probably broke it.
You think it was a break?
Yeah, probably.
Without a doubt, because the impact, you could hear it was so hard. There was no way he was going to be able to get up normally.
It's definitely a break.
I mean, you could just tell when people are really hurt in wrestling and when they're acting it. You could just tell when you're getting up, when your body's reacted a lot more different than what you used to be seeing when they do get hurt. You can tell what really is broke,
And you see it on the face.
Yeah.
Well, look at what happened to Gronk a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
Another guy who's had a long history of injuries, and it's a real shame because Gronk has become.
forearm issues he's had.
Yeah.
He's had issues with
Gronk
his legs.
emerged as their best player, and now that he's gone,
crazy.
who's Tom Brady going to throw the ball to?
Well, you got Bennett, that's the thing. That's the reason why they got Martellus Bennett, because they want to return back to the old two-headed monster with the guy whose name I shall not mention, like Voldemort.
You just mentioned it.
Yeah, I just mentioned his name. No, but
Just don't say it 2 more times.
Say it 2 times more faster.
the point, they want to return back to that two-headed monster tight end that really worked back in the day when you had and Gronk. Now you have Bennett and Gronk, and this time around, now that Gronk is not, I think he still has some lingering issues. He's not really 100%, but when he's on his game and he's in open space, you're screwed.
Yeah.
You know something? When I would take Gronk at 50% over about 90% of the tight ends in the league.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, but besides that, even though his number one weapon is pretty much half done right now with injuries, Tom Brady is such a good quarterback that he'll find anybody on the offensive line and get him the ball, and they'll do something with it.
Right.
He is probably the smartest quarterback of our generation.
Yeah.
And this is a Jet fan saying
And this
this.
is a Jet fan.
And a Dolphins fan.
And a Dolphins fan.
and
Yes, I am a Dolphins fan, ladies
Yep.
and gentlemen.
They do exist, folks.
what's really
They're
scary
few and
though?
far between around here, but
What's really scary? Tom Brady's 39 years old, and he looks like he's 10 years younger.
Well, don't forget, he has that offensive line that's a juggernaut.
Yep.
No one's going to touch Brady. That's
He's got
why he's
Giselle
able
Bundchen.
to do it.
Well, if we
I'm
can,
sure she keeps him young too.
Yep. Let's stay in our neck of the woods in just a moment and talk about what happened in the Giant game yesterday. It was basically a tale of two halves.
The first half.
Yep, the first half was totally dominated by the Bears, although the numbers didn't really show much. It was 16-6, but there were 2 missed extra points. But what happened to that Bears quarterback, Jay Cutler? He looked like the second coming of Jim McMahon out there. But then came the second half, and the Giants suddenly realized who the quarterback was. It's Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Not only that, but they shut down that running game because Jordan Howard, who's been having a really outstanding rookie season, 75 yards in the first half, 5 yards in the second half on 5 carries. Wow.
That's an improvement on the defense. What they adjusted the way they played in the second half. They were able.
They did, and I can tell you, I think that the Bears have to get Jeremy Langford back into the fold a lot more. I
Yeah.
think if you have the two-headed monster of Langford and Howard, I think they could have a great duo in the backfield.
Or if you get Kadeem Carey and you have that third monster, you can remember the old Giants Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Yeah.
Bring that back to Chicago right there.
Well, don't forget, also with their offense, they were missing one key component, and that's Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Jeffrey was not playing at all. That was Cutler's go-to guy from the very beginning of the season. He was out. Cutler
No, he
got
got
hurt.
suspended.
He had no one to throw it to. The Giants' defense stepped up to the plate like they should have did in the very beginning instead of waiting until half.
They scored in the
And-
first 2 possessions of the second half, especially the game-winning touchdown to Sterling Shepard, who, by the way, has been a tremendous addition to that team since they
step
got
up.
him.
Yeah.
He has been incredible. I think he could be in the running for Rookie of the Year for the NFC.
Yeah.
Although I raise you Ezekiel Elliott, 1,100 yards.
Oh, yeah. Well,
At this rate-
I said in the mix.
And
I didn't say
Prescott.
could be.
Prescott
He's
as
gonna
well.
be.
We couldn't have a double rookie of the year
Yeah.
in the league. Prescott and Elliott, who yesterday
do that.
torched the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
That was
And
How
now,
about Joe Flacco's comment after the game? Did you hear it?
no, I didn't hear about it. What did he say this time?
During his press conference, they asked him about the game, and he said, "We should have won that game. We should beat that team. We're better."
Well,
Are you kidding?
every athlete is going to feel that way, but let's face facts. The Cowboys were 10 times better yesterday.
That was the first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know what delusion, what planet he was on. He obviously wasn't watching the game when he wasn't playing.
No, he definitely was not watching the game whatsoever. And you know what? The Cowboys.
and the Ravens have really let down defensively in the last, I'd say, 5 or 6
You know
weeks
what?
or so.
Since we are in the Ravens, about still going great and strong, is Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Once again, he had around 100-yard receiving and a TD against a Dallas D.
Yeah,
Hey, I was happy. I have him on my fantasy team.
And he
Yeah.
made a milestone. He became the 14th player in NFL history to have a career 1,000 catches.
Yeah.
And that spanned so many years with the Carolina Panthers and with the Ravens. That's an incredible milestone in itself right there.
You think the Panthers won a mulligan in whether they wanted to let Smith go or not? Because he's really been not necessarily tearing it to pieces, but he's been playing some good football
He's
with the
solid.
Ravens.
He is a solid player.
Well,
he was
yeah.
never that superstar. But you
But not
needed a
everyone
third
can
down.
be.
You needed a third down completion. Who did Carolina look at for years?
It was
Steve
always
Smith.
Steve Smith.
Steve Smith.
But
And
didn't
what
he-
sets him apart was he was also one of the smaller receivers in the league. He's only 5'9".
But he's super quick, though, and he's super smart.
Super
makes
smart,
good
super
vertical
quick,
plays.
and great
Plays,
hands.
that's the
He has
thing.
Yep.
great
He
hands.
knows where he
He can
is
think
on the
fast
field
and move
at all
fast.
times.
And last year he had that bad injury, towards the second half of the season. But for the most part, this has been a durable player who's been in the league for over a decade. Somebody that I think is definitely has withstood the test of time. And I, for one, think we're gonna see maybe another year or two left in him. I think there might be a year or two left
Well,
in
think
him.
about it. Last year, this shouldn't actually be happening because last year, in the beginning of the year, he said this was going to be his last year.
Yeah, he did
And
mention
then he got
retirement.
hurt, and he said I have to come back and I can't end my career that way.
Yeah, no
But-
athlete ever wants to end their career with an injury. I mean, look at what happened with Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter.
But this could be his
You want
last
to talk
year, though.
about
You never
standing
know.
the test of time?
Huh?
This
Yep.
could be Steve Smith's last year anyway, because he did say he wanted to go one more year by going out with a bang, and he's actually proven it this year. So you never know. This could be his last
I
year.
hope it's not. I hope to see maybe another year or two. It would suck for me, even though I don't own it in fantasy. I like to see a play like that just for
I would like to see him go to a contender.
Like New England.
New England would do well. with
Anybody
it.
but New
Yeah.
England.
There was almost a
I'm
Steve
a
Smith
New
to the
England fan,
Patriots
but-
trade that took place at the
remember that.
deadline, and at the
I-
last minute they wound up calling the deal off.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what I would like to see? I would like to see Steve Smith for 1 year before he retires to go to the Jets. Actually, I did admit that. Even though I am a Dolphins
But
fan.
would he be used correctly though? And
No, of
also,
course not.
Do the Jets ever use anybody correctly?
No.
So far in their quarterback situations, they haven't done anything correctly.
speaking of quarterbacks, because their backup wound up suffering a concussion, that means Ryan Fitzpatrick has to be brought in as the
Oh,
starter for the
please.
Patriot game on Sunday night.
No, say no.
It's definitely going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick.
No, Todd
And
Bowles
for the
announced
record,
that today.
it was supposed to be a Sunday night game, but considering where the Jets are, because they're at that point where they're going to do the flex scheduling, they put it at 4:00.
Think about this. They took Tom Brady and the Patriots out of a primetime game. That shows how much the league actually thinks of our New York Jets.
They've never had any respect for the Jets whatsoever.
No, but that's how bad the Jets are. Tom Brady couldn't even save them in a primetime game.
It's like, who's the more incompetent franchise in that league? Is it the Browns or is it the Jets? Or is it the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Browns, hands down. They have a worse front. The fact they have John Podesta, a guy who was Podesta, who was a baseball person. They bring in a baseball expert to run a football team. Right there.
There's a
All you can
disconnect
do,
there.
all you can do is laugh.
Yeah.
That's like making Phil Jackson the general manager of the Rangers.
Ladies and gentlemen, the
Wait, that
Cleveland
just happened
Browns.
today,
The Cleveland Browns are now the biggest circus team joke in football history.
Oh.
I've never
Thank-
seen them do one good thing since O.J. Simpson.
Thank God for Cleveland fans that they have the Cavaliers and the Indians to fall back on.
And those charcoal brown jerseys, man, they're terrible. I
And
have to
First
say.
Energy Stadium, which used to sell out every single Sunday in the fall, is now at half capacity for every single Browns game.
I'm shocked
And
it's even
the,
half.
The dog pound is no more.
The puppy pound.
Pretty much.
I think-
don't even know if I would call it that.
I think they might have been sent to a kennel.
No, this team has been neutered.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Since we're on the subject of football, it's Thanksgiving time, which means it's also the time for the Thanksgiving Day games. And there's going to be a really good trio this coming Thanksgiving.
Great lineup.
Vikings versus Lions,
That's
which,
for
by the
sure.
way, is
That's a
going to
good
be for
game.
the NFC North lead. Redskins Cowboys, which is always bitter. And Steelers Colts, which is going to have
gonna be
one
ugly.
Scott Tolzien be the starting quarterback for the Colts.
I'll tell you this: the first game that we're looking at, Vikings Lions, right here. What this is going to come down to is going to be the fourth quarter field goal play, and Matt Prater. I think he'll get the game-winning field goal. Give me the Lions in the final minute.
You know what that game's going to come down to? I think it's going to come down to running backs.
Yeah.
Which team can run the ball? Because both teams can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know which team is going to be able to run the ball on the other defense.
I think it will be the Vikings. If it comes down to running, it's the Vikings. If it comes down to
Are you
just
sure about
And that's
that?
saying
Yeah.
a lot considering there's no Adrian Peterson.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I disagree with all of you guys. Yes, I said it.
I knew you were gonna.
Do you want me to say why?
Please
Well, absolutely.
elaborate.
Listen carefully. Matthew Stafford, if he is on his game, he will light it up.
All right.
He's
We'll
the
see.
wild card in this one.
Yep.
He is.
And this
I mean, who would you
offensive
rather
coordinator,
have as your
Jim
quarterback?
Bob Cooter,
Matthew
the best name in all
Stafford?
football.
Or Sam Bradford.
I would take Stafford.
Stafford is a much
Stafford.
better player than Sam Bradford has
Yep.
been.
I'll tell you something.
Who are
though.
you going for in this game?
Stafford. Yep.
So you're all going Lions in this one.
Stafford is such a better player. I mean, they both had their problems with injuries, but Stafford is such a tough kid. He can gut out any type of injury. Plus,
Oh, yeah.
he's had his moments where he's made some of the most phenomenal
Oh,
plays
yeah.
to help win games.
Can you imagine Stafford behind either that Vikings offensive line or that Patriots offensive line?
Mm-hmm.
Or even, as of recent, the Dolphins offensive line?
Yeah.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
Their offensive line has played a lot better the last
Yes.
few weeks.
But I know I'm gonna say this once, only once. I am pleasantly surprised of how Tannehill is playing in the last 5 weeks. He only threw one interception in the last 5 weeks. To me, he's definitely growing in front of our eyes. He's getting a lot more comfortable.
Well, the reason I said this on my first episode of my football show. The new coach, Adam Gase, he is a quarterbacks coach. If you look what he did in San Diego with Philip Rivers, if you look what he did last year with Jay Cutler, even though, yes, it wasn't successful, but he lessened his turnovers from 2014. That's what Adam Gase brought to the picture.
He makes a difference
He makes a
wherever he goes.
Exactly. He makes a huge difference with quarterbacks, and that's why it was a perfect fit for him to go to Miami. And Tannehill needed somebody to correct the way he's been playing, the losses that he's had. Unfortunately, he's below 500 so far in his career with Miami. Maybe with Gase coming on board, this will turn the tide. And you have a good array of receivers in Landry, Parker, and you have a hell of a back in Jay who's really lighting the board up. He's a scary back.
I was
He is.
about to say that
And,
because
and just imagine,
see, a
if
Jeff
Ari-
fan talking about my Dolphins. Let's hear this.
if Arian Foster didn't retire because he knew in his heart he couldn't do it anymore,
Yep.
would Jay Ajayi actually be getting all these opportunities?
No, he
Probably
would not.
I have to.
Disagree?
Yes.
You think he would have still been the star even though Foster was still on the
They would have
roster?
shared some carries.
Well, see, the thing is this. Eventually, he would actually start showing in practice that he really needs to be on that offensive team instead of the practice field. And yes, unfortunately, the way that he's now shown is that Foster's out.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the huge difference of what he's bringing to that whole offensive line. They're actually protecting him a lot easier. They're giving him the holes. Don't forget, he's a small running back.
Yeah.
He's like 5'9", 5'10", but he's so powerful
And
that
it's shifty too.
yeah, he could move his feet quick. What was it? In just 2 games alone, he ran over 400 and something yards.
They
Then-
shifted the offensive line. That was the thing.
Yeah.
And getting Laramie Tunsil, that was a gift right there. If it wasn't for him being Darth Stoner, on draft night, with that photo coming out, if that didn't happen, the Dolphins wouldn't have picked him up. He would have went top 5 probably. But the fact that he fell on to number 13. So the idiot that basically sent that photo of, like I said, Darth Stoner, basically graced your Dolphins with a hell of an offensive line. With him and Albert, if Albert plays to his full potential like he did in Kansas City the year before he got that insane contract, if you have all those pieces together, this Dolphins team, I was telling him earlier, I said that they are going to be a wild card team. Mark my words. They're getting that 6th wild card spot.
I hope so. I mean,
it's a real jumble in the AFC, though, because after the Patriots and the Raiders, who right now are the 2 best teams in that conference, who else is there? I mean, to a lesser extent, you have the Houston Texans, but I just don't believe in their quarterback. A guy who's got an unearned contract and is
Speaking of
rather
which,
messy offensively, if you ask me.
The Texans tonight are going to be in Mexico City Monday night against the Raiders.
Yep.
Estadio Azteca, 2,000 feet higher than the elevation of Denver Stadium.
Yeah, a matchup of division leaders. The Raiders lead the West, and the Texans lead the South.
Well, let me give an applause to all you Raiders fans. Congratulations. You're actually doing it this year. They finally have a quarterback that's more experienced.
Yep.
All right, they knew he had an arm. They knew he was a smart quarterback. They got Michael Crabtree as the number 1 wide receiver, which he's doing an awesome job with the Raiders. Yeah, well, congratulations to you, right? You're doing a good job this year. But in San Francisco, he had more weapons there to play around him, and he couldn't do nearly anything compared to what he's doing with the Raiders.
And that's interesting considering that he worked with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and for a long time had Frank Gore as well. And now he's working with
Cooper.
Yeah, Amari Cooper also. And a really young guy in Derek Carr, who I didn't really believe in when he first came out of Fresno State, but he's really grown by leaps and bounds in the last
Better
2
than his
years.
brother David, that's for sure.
I got to tell you,
came
I
out,
think
I was like,
David Carr is going to be a top 5 quarterback.
He was
for
terrible in
years to
Houston.
come.
And he was the very first quarterback for that Houston Texans franchise. And you saw how that played out. And so right there, we all had this assumption that, oh my God, here we go, another card to grace us with his unfortunate presence. And lo and behold, he actually has proved a lot of people wrong. And we've had our arguments about Derek Carr on the show for years. Like, I was touting him probably more than most people should have, and he was telling me, Eric, I don't know about that. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I was like you guys. As soon as I heard Oakland drafted Carr very high, I was like, what are they doing? They're still not going to be good because they can't take a Carr brother.
Yeah.
And
Not only that,
look,
but
we're
a lot of
surprised
these
now.
Fresno State quarterbacks that make their way out, like Derek Carr and David Carr, and even some of the guys that play for the lesser-known West Coast schools like San Diego State or San Jose State, they don't necessarily translate well to the NFL. The
USC.
USC is another
Well,
thing.
you know
USC
who we could
quarterbacks.
talk
Let's
about that.
Let's not even talk about USC quarterbacks.
Probably
please.
the
I can
only
name one. Matt?
Yeah.
Matt Leinart.
Exactly.
Actually,
brother.
Carson Palmer.
Matt Leinart is now with
For a
the
bit, yeah.
Fox Network.
Well, Carson Palmer is definitely a true protege coming out of the USC to make it a big transition into the NFL.
Yeah.
But once again, Carson Palmer needed the right team to do it with.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he didn't have it before.
If you look at Carson Palmer this year, he went from being this close to elite status last year
to being at the
to
bottom.
being at the bottom again. He has such great weapons around him with David Johnson. David Johnson is a beast.
And
Yeah.
Chris Johnson.
And
well,
Larry-
Chris Johnson's
and
out for
Fitz.
the season now, but
Yeah.
Larry
Yeah.
Fitzgerald
Yeah.
still putting up numbers like he's putting up is just incredible. And you have J.J. Nelson there, who's really coming into his own. You know, you have Michael Floyd, who's been really disappointing this year over there.
Yeah.
But-
He's been questionable since he came. He's had a few good years, Floyd.
Right.
He's had several bad ones. It's like when are we going to finally have that breakout Floyd season that we've all expected from Notre
But
Dame?
you could see
Right.
it coming
But you
here
could-
and there.
you
But then
could
he just goes
see.
back down to average status again.
Which is really like.
He needs to
Yeah.
find the
Well,
spot
that's
he
the
fits
problem.
in,
You could
know?
see Floyd and Palmer. The two of them have just dropped off so much this year. Everybody before the season started was saying that the Cardinals are going to run away with the NFC.
Yep.
Where are they?
They're not even in the conversation right now. It's really.
There's still time left over because there's another 5 weeks to play with. But right now, It's
not
looking like
good.
right now. It's looking like Seattle is starting to hit their stride. Not only that, but the rest of the division is just deplorable.
And
The Rams have no offense. The 49ers are a complete and utter disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of the 49ers, we were talking about
The 1-9ers.
we were talking about the Browns before. If the Browns win one game, will the Niners win a second and not fight them for the first pick in the draft?
Don't, guys.
Wow, we're
brother.
dropping that low, huh, Darren?
The question
Well,
is,
you know,
at this rate,
you gotta
do
talk
either
about
of
the
these
draft.
teams either really want that first pick in the draft? Because we don't even know who's going to be declaring for the draft.
I think Brad Kaya from Miami is going to be somebody, but the one guy that's going to be the number one overall pick on every draft board, Myles Garrett at Texas A&M. Even though yesterday he had a Saturday he had a 4-sack performance for them against UTSA. You know, even though Texas San Antonio is not that great of a team, they're in that Conference USA. But still, the fact that Myles Garrett, had a heck of a performance on Saturday and was a half yard shy of tying an old SEC record. He's really got good. He's got a good quick step. He's somebody that will be able to get in your face pretty quickly. He's got a hell of a motor, and somebody that.
His motor doesn't stop.
Oh yeah, I'm afraid of him.
There's somebody else that you have to consider as a potential number one, though.
Jabril-
It's Jabril Peppers from Michigan. That kid has completely dominated this season.
Dalvin Cook, Florida State.
Yep, that's another kid.
He just actually tore Warwick Dunn's record at Florida State this past Saturday. He had over a 200-yard performance, a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Since we're on the subject of football, let me mention what's going on a little closer to home, because here on Staten Island, we have the potential to have a city champion, because my alma mater, Curtis, just blew out Midwood in the quarterfinals of the Public League championships. So they're going to be in the semifinals, but now they have to take on one of the Brooklyn schools, which just so happens to be Grand Street campus this coming Saturday. Unfortunately, Tottenville got their butt kicked by the best team in the city right now, which is Lincoln. So Lincoln is going to be in the semifinals.
That's my mom's alma mater.
Lincoln's going to be in the semifinals as well. But we do have a bright side. We have a Catholic League champion, and it just so happens to be more Catholic. They won 32-22 over Cardinal Spellman. I think it was Cardinal Spellman that they wound up beating this past weekend up in Long Island. And for the record, yes, it was Cardinal Spellman. A 10-point game, 32-22 was the final score. Congratulations to Cardinal Spellman. Congratulations to my alma mater, Curtis. One's a champion. Another is one game away from a championship. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're going to play the city championship in Yankee Stadium again. And that's going to be such a thrill for these kids if they can advance to the championship game.
And my condolences to Charlie Strong on not having a job at Texas anymore.
Actually, that's not a guarantee. Texas wants to fire Charlie Strong, but from what I heard, Texas players want to boycott the Texas Christian game on Friday if he gets fired. They do not want to see him get canned. He's only had 3 years on the job, but this just goes to show you, if you don't win immediately in Austin, you're going to get shown the door.
It's the worst job you could ever have as a coach. It's the most pressure-filled job besides being the Miami Hurricanes coach, the Notre Dame coach this year, who I wouldn't be shocked to see him get the pink slip.
To a lesser extent, also being manager of the Yankees as well. But that was only when Mr. Steinbrenner was around.
And
right
president
now,
of the U.S.
Yeah, and also president of the United States, which is really saying something. But from what I understand, if Charlie Strong does get fired, they may go after the guy from the University of Houston because he has really turned that program around in the blink of an eye.
He was a former offense coordinator for Clemson, coach for the Houston Cougars, and they beat Louisville this past week 36-10. Greg Ward Jr., another Heisman candidate.
Just this
And
past
Louisville
weekend.
was in the talks for, national championship just a couple weeks ago.
Well,
And now they're out.
But
how
this goes
about-
to show how fast it can change.
Yep.
What about Bama?
What about Michigan? Mr. Harbaugh.
The
hello.
the game is this coming weekend. Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah.
What could be for a spot in the Big Ten championship game. There's also Penn State to consider because James Franklin's done a great job with Penn State this year. And
They've
consider
surprised.
this. Yeah, Penn State has surprised a lot of people. They've done it so well defensively, and also they've solved their quarterback situation. They've finally gotten a quarterback that can make some big plays for them.
Here's the thing. Penn State could actually win the Big Ten East. But
If
they
Ohio State wins, then Penn State wins the Eastern Division because Penn State has the tiebreaker against Ohio State.
So they have to hope that whoever Penn State plays this week, Michigan State beats Penn State, and then if Ohio State wins, they'll go to the Big Ten title game. And Wisconsin needs to win Paul Bunyan's axe.
Yeah, against Minnesota. There's going to be a lot of great rivalry games. There's the Michigan game, Alabama-Auburn in the Iron Bowl, Florida State against Florida in the
Florida
Sunshine
fan.
Classic.
Perfect.
A lot of rivalry
Then you
games
should be my
this
Dolphins
coming
fan.
weekend. And we'd be remiss if we did not mention what's going on in the other sports. For example, in baseball, Brian McCann got traded to the Astros recently
Really?
For two minor leaguers.
for 2 pitching prospects.
And Omaha Steaks.
And also a box of baseballs and a partridge in a pear tree.
They were used baseballs. They were for practice.
Yes. But the real reason why this trade was made, one, Gary Sanchez is now the man behind the plate. And 2, this was a salary dump. Brian McCann's going to be making $17 million each of the next 2 years.
Congratulations to Houston.
Houston has that big bat that they
You know
needed in their
something?
batting order.
Houston's lineup is going to be dangerous.
And
I
they
know.
also
They
signed
got
Josh
Gomez.
Reddick to a big contract as well. So that's 2 big boppers that they're going to have in their batting order.
Josh Reddick went to the Astros?
Yeah,
Josh Reddick got a
Reddick.
4-year contract to go to the Astros.
And the
Wow.
rotation they have, if they perform what they were 2 years ago, that rotation, like they were,
Keuchel and McHugh.
yeah.
But that lineup, you got Altuve at the top of it. You got Correa. You got
Springer, I think.
Bergman. That kid looked amazing the last couple months of the season. You know, and then you add McCann and Reddick into
Yeah.
that lineup.
It's gonna be
Where's the weak
interesting.
spot?
Here's
The pitcher's batting order spot. That's it.
really, the Astros will definitely make a play as well as Texas. Those are the 2 teams that always will compete in that AL West. The Yankees this year, they're looking for outfield help, and there's some names popping out. There's even a possible Yoenis Cespedes to the Yankees.
That's been really hot
Yeah,
recently.
but-
Yeah, but how about the big rumor? Well, I don't know if it's a rumor, but I heard on the radio they were talking about the possibility of a 5-for-1, 5 prospects for Trout.
Not happening.
Somebody was joking to me about that regarding a Mike Trout to the Yankees rumor. The Yankees would make a steal if they made that trade, but there's the matter of his contract, though. He's got a chunk of money left over and
Yeah,
a
you're talking about the Yankees.
long-term deal. I think he's got
Absolutely.
about another 7 or 8 years left over.
But the luxury
and
tax
haven't
threshold,
they
that's what
learned their
hurts them.
lesson
I think
from the
that's
A-Rod
why they
contract,
didn't-
which
yeah.
they're still paying off for another year.
I
You
personally.
would think, but you got to remember, Trout is also 6 years younger than A-Rod was when they gave him that
And he's
contract.
also the best player in the game. And he just got named the American League's most valuable player for the 2nd time in his career.
Yeah, but there's no way the Angels are going to let Trout go.
He's the franchise player now.
Exactly.
But yet you have to think, though, the Angels are in such disarray. You give them 5 pieces that they could add into their lineup. Granted,
pitching help they need the most.
right, 5 prospects you give them. You let the kids play for a year. You let them get seasoned in the league. You never know.
But I don't
Any,
think.
any team that the Angels have one of the worst farm systems.
Yeah.
They have Trout has nobody really around him anymore.
Especially, and people will say, well, he's got Albert Pujols, but Albert Pujols is in the downside of his
Albert
Yeah.
Pujols is a shell of his former self. I
And-
love Albert Pujols.
And he's halfway through his massive contract.
right.
But you also got to think this too. Mm-hmm. The Yankees weren't winning with old veterans anymore. That's why they started going younger and making trades for younger players. So if they're going to want to keep going younger, there's no reason why the Yankees should trade 5 young prospects since they're going that route as we speak for just one Trout.
With
But
less than
Trout's
a
only what?
minute to
Trout's
go,
only 27,
25.
25.
He still has at least 6-7 years ahead of him.
He's
in
got
this
his
league.
entire life ahead of him right now. With about 30 seconds to go, they just dropped some names on the Hall of Fame ballot for Major League Baseball. 2 names are on the ballot for the first time. Tim Raines and Manny Ramirez.
Manny.
And also Vladimir Guerrero and Jorge Posada.
I would think of the 4 of them. I would go Vlad.
Right
There
now,
was only one.
Vladimir Guerrero, and also on the ballot is Jeff Bagwell. We got 7 seconds left. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone here, I'm Jamie. Good night, everyone.
Peace.
Good night.
Peace.